So I made this video to go over a couple of points that Anthony brought up as he was making his way through the Barron's book. The first one is has to do with arrays. And so what do we have here? We have an array that's 5 spaces. We're initializing it with this regular for loop with every spot being equal to its index, right? So the 0 index is going to equal to 0. The 5 index is going to equal to 5. I'm sorry, the 4 index is going to equal to 4. And here we have a for each loop. And so the for each loop has this variable j, which is equal to each element in R, right? J is equal to the first element in R in the first iteration, the second in the second iteration, and so on until it reaches the end of R. And we're setting j equal to 0, right? So in your mind, you might be thinking, well, j is equal to the first element in R, and R is a array, which is passed by reference, which means that its memory location is being passed, which means if I modify elements in R, I should be modifying the content of that memory location, which means that setting j equal to 0 is going to set every element in R equal to 0, right? That might be your line of thinking. And let's suppose that, right? And then we're going to come on down here and we're going to print everything out in a for each loop. And so it should print out 0, 0, 0, 0, right? So with that assumption being true. So we'll compile, we'll run, and it does not, right? So why not? The reason why the array is untouched is because j is a temporary variable that contains a copy of the element in R, right? So setting j equal to 0 sets the temporary variable equal to 0. And once we break out of the for loop here, that information is lost. It's gone. That temporary j is, doesn't exist anymore. And then when we come over here and we have another for each loop, this z is equal to the values in the R array, which have been left untouched. So that's that. Something to remember. This might be one of those trick problems that seem like it's an easy one, but they're trying to test your understanding of the details of Java. So we'll come on back here, and here's another problem. Here we have an array list of strings called places. We've added these locations to the array list, and then we have this for each loop, right, with this iterating variable j, going through the elements in places, and we are removing them. So you might think to yourself, okay, well this is good. We're removing Puerto. Like this for each loop is iterating 3 times because places has a length of 3, and for each iteration we are removing first Puerto, then Libidos, then Mancora, and then it's breaking out and we're ending, right? Well, let's go ahead and work on that assumption, and we'll compile, we'll run, and it gives us the concurrent modification exception. And so why? Well, the idea here is that you cannot remove an object from an array list in a for each loop. Okay. The reasoning behind that, I don't have a 100% complete answer for this, but my understanding is that the array list behind the scenes is powered using an array. And every time you remove an element from the array list, what happens is that the array in the background, that's 3 elements long, the first element is taken out, the second element is put into the first element, and then the third element is put into the second element of another array, a 2-element array. And that one is what places is equal to, right? And then when you remove again, that same process happens where you remove the first one and you shift everything over into a new array that's smaller, and that's put into places, right? So array lists, again, are a interface, and they're implemented using an array, right? And you're just kind of like shuffling the array around according to whether you remove or you add elements. So that's what's happening in the background. And the reason why this is not allowed is because the amount of iterations this for loop is going to run is determined in the beginning based on the length of places. So places, that's a length of 3. So the number of iterations this for loop is going to run is 3. And now we come inside, and I am going to remove the first element in the array. and then in the background, it is going to remove the second element in the array, and then it's going to come in and it's going to try to remove an element that's not in the array list. So that's my understanding. I might be wrong, but the bottom line is that you cannot remove objects from an array list in a for each loop. So how can you remove them? What you need to do is you need to create an iterator, right? So we're going to make an iterator object with the same type as what's in our array list. You're going to set it equal to the array list name dot iterator, and then you're going to use has next, right? So if there is something that's still in the array list, it will iterate again. And so when you're coming in and you're coming through, then you're saying the value of this string is equal to the next element, and then you're removing it using the iterator. And so the iterating class has code in the background to account for the changing size of the array list, right? So just something to remember. I'm fairly confident that this is not something that's going to show up on the free response question, but it might be something. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything like this in the multiple choice, but it might come up in the multiple choice, and it's just good to know.